Hi, welcome to another show of Flip Your Switch. Today's show will have Elizabeth Correia, a transitional speaker, an author, and a coach. She had an abusive background, gangbanger, hung with some really tough guys at a Regent Park, packed a pistol for most of her teenage life, did time, suffered a serious brain injury, had her boyfriend die in her arms after a shootout. She is here today to talk to you about her experiences, a must read. Stay tuned, a really good show is coming up. Hi, Elizabeth, you're a transformational speaker and the author. I read your book, it was very interesting. You have a unique and interesting story to tell. Why don't you start that story?
Oh my gosh, where do I start?
From the
Jeez.
beginning, always. So you wrote a book, so you can start from the beginning of your book and just roll up and then grab the
Okay.
most interesting spots because that's what you want to highlight. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about that.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Bleecker, on Bleecker in St. Jamestown, in extremely abusive household. Both my parents were physically abusive, emotionally, mentally, and my father was also sexually abusive. So really, everything started there. Just how dark it was at home. My father was also extremely physically abusive towards my mother, and that abuse went on for years, and it started as far back as I can remember. When we were 14, it's actually my 14th birthday, my sister and I got placed into foster care. I ended up speaking out. I just, had enough with my dad and couldn't deal with it anymore. So I spoke out about the sexual abuse. I actually spoke to my doctor, and my father was arrested, and we got put into care. In the first, 6, 7 months I was in care. I lived in over 10 foster homes and group homes, and that's really where everything started. Like everything went down. I got involved in gang activities and armed robberies and selling drugs, and I was a teen mom. I got pregnant at 16. I ended up at 14, right around the time I went into care. I ended up meeting this guy who I was with for about 6 years, but he was extremely physically abusive as well. So he was a lot like my dad. They say you're attracted to, whatever your father is, you end up being attracted to that. So that abuse went on. I was a teen mom. All throughout my pregnancy, I was still, selling drugs and at one point guns and um, anything to make that fast.
So at a time in this story, you flipped your switch.
I flipped my switch later. Yeah, actually.
So let me go back.
Yeah.
So we'll just kick it.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Regent Park, also you're from Regent Park.
Yeah.
Also, you used to hang here, so we know people in common.
Yes.
So I was sent to foster care when I was 14, 15 years old, and I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to deal with it. So I broke into a store, a gun store, and nearly got caught with the guns just so I could go back to training school. So I elected to go back to jail rather than navigate what I read in your book that you went through in the foster care. Totally different experience,
Wow.
but not much different because the people in the places are the same people.
It's your friends. I go to jail and your friends are in there.
So oftentimes the government tries to put us in foster care to help us, and then often that doesn't work out and actually hurts us. Can you give us some examples of that so other people in that situation could wake up?
Yeah, definitely. My experiences in foster care were not good. I mean, okay, granted, I wasn't the easiest person to deal with. I was my attitude was awful. I was angry, I was mad, I was sad, I was broken. So I became a product of those feelings. But there was only one home that I ended up going into where I stayed for almost 2 years. I actually called them mom and dad, which I said I'd never do that. Because you'd go into these homes and people are like, oh, mom, dad. I'm like, I'm not calling them mom and dad. But, all the homes except for that one, I'm talking kitchen cupboards all had locks on them. The fridge was locked. There were rooms we weren't allowed in. We had our own living room. So it was kind of weird because we weren't allowed in the living room where my foster parents and their kids hung out in. So it was just like a side room that we would go in.
Here in the projects. I've
Yeah.
saw people with houses with locks on their fridges and locks on their
Oh
cupboards.
my gosh,
And
no.
they're not in foster care.
No,
That's where they get
stop.
first-time kids.
What? I've never
Yeah.
seen that. And
I
I've
saw it.
been in so many different projects. That's crazy. Yeah. So that was a little weird. And the reason why I think I'll always remember that part of it is because one thing we never lacked at home, my parents lived in government housing. We, grew up in the projects, but there was always an abundance of food.
Well, I grew up with a lot of Portuguese people right here in this neighborhood.
Yes, that's right.
We used to just go crazy when they say, "Come on in and have
Oh,
something to eat."
you're getting fed.
We're going ahead.
And you're probably not allowed to leave without eating. It's like, you're too skinny. You need to eat. You're dying,
I know
so.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was always an abundance of food, and everyone in my neighborhood, and even my friends, from Region and Esplanade, and they always remembered that about me, about home. My friends would actually come over. You probably read this in the book, and I would sneak them Nutella sandwiches through the mailbox, right? Or we had like this thing that we had like a string, a rope with a sock, and I would pass them. We'd stand on the balcony and we'd pass them down to our friends who lived on
You're
like.
the friend we always wanted.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I always had food, and so when I went into the homes and saw that really affected me. If I wasn't there for dinner, I didn't get dinner. If I wasn't there for lunch, I didn't get lunch.
Only because we were poor. So our mother said,
Yeah.
"You're not here for dinner. Your brother
You don't
will
eat.
eat your dinner for you." And they used to wait 1 second. "Mom, he's not coming." Go ahead, and then you'd show up. It was like they'd be
Right, yeah.
2 or 3 minutes, but that was her rule. Be
Yeah.
here or you don't eat, right?
Right.
But I noticed that was never the case in the Portuguese houses around us.
No. So foster care was, among many other things. What I loved about it was the freedom, and I didn't have that at home. Well, obviously, I was 14 when I left, but my father was extremely strict with us. But the fact that I could go anywhere and do anything as long as I was home by a certain time, I totally took advantage of that. I started sleeping out. I AWOL'd so many times. Most of the homes I was in. Yeah.
And just like if you're at home, it's breaking the rules.
Yeah,
The
but once I.
punishment's different, right?
Yeah. So I liked that part. I enjoyed coming home at 9, and sometimes I didn't come home, and they would call the cops and, report a missing persons or whatever. I AWOL'd, and so I hopped from home to home to home. There was no love. Most of the homes I went into you were just a paycheck, and I knew that. The funny thing is, I later became a foster parent myself. But when I was younger in care, I'd always say, when I get older, I'm going to be a foster parent, and I'm going to be an amazing foster parent because of the way they treated me. And I was told that from some of the foster parents. You wouldn't be in here if I wasn't getting paid, or you're lucky I'm getting paid to have you in here.
But you ran into some that were different.
There was one family, and that was the family I chose to stay in. I obeyed their rules. They were amazing, and I had to leave there because I got pregnant. And at the time, they didn't take, girls and their babies. They weren't equipped for that. So I went on my own.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you mentioned that you had a series of interactions in various foster homes, various different care, various programs, all supported by the government, that people were getting government checks. But then you mentioned that there was one specific foster home that made a difference. And that foster home, even though they were getting a government check, they were different.
Oh my gosh, they were amazing. Mom and Dad, they've both passed. Mom passed a couple years ago. But they just, from the moment I walked in that home, it was a nice home. They had a backyard pool, and it was just, there was something I felt the moment I walked in the home. I don't know if it was the way they greeted me. To be honest, I can't even explain what it was. I felt it, in my spirit, I felt it. And I sat there with my worker. The worker does the first initial, the take-in, right? Your intake session, meeting. And my social worker said, okay, well, now her name was Mary. Now Mary's going to tell you the rules of the house. And then I was like, okay. And I thought to myself, oh, here we go, the rules. I was kind of used to it by that time. That was like my over 10th home that I had been in. And mom, Mary, at the time, she looked at me and said, well, there really are no rules. You can use the kitchen. We don't, nothing's locked up, because she knows how some of the other homes are. There's no locks on anything. Cook what you want. She goes, the only thing is, you might not like what we cook. If you know how to cook, great. Take whatever you want out of the freezer, out of the cupboards, eat when you want, use the pool, this. And I was just like, is she serious? Oh my God. Hold on, there's got to be a trick here. Something's going on. And then she brought me up to my room. And what I loved was the top floor of the house, there was 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. No one else was on that top level of the house. So only the foster girls could go up there. So it was like our own little quarters, like our own little spot, you know? We had our own line, our own house phone. That was like, oh my God, the jackpot. Because normally the homes, you're only allowed a certain amount of time on the phone, because the landline was everyone's line. So that was another thing that was like, this is good. I had one roommate. Each room held, there's 2 girls per room. No, so we had our own beds, which was great. In our own side of the rooms were large. So it was just, everything about it was amazing. And then later on that day, so I stayed, unpacked my stuff. Later on that day, I noticed all the girls were calling Mary mom. And I was like, why do they call her mom? And I asked the girls, I'm like, why do you guys call her mom? Like, that's not your mom. I'd never seen that before, And they were like, she's like a mother. So, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll never call her mom.
Well, I get that, because when you have original communities, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You call
right. And I know that now, but at the time I was like, I'm not calling anybody mom. So I'm like, well, I'm not calling her mom. I'm going to call her Mary. Oh, let me tell you, Ricky, within a week, I was calling her mom. Like, she really was a mom. Like, so I was there for more than 2 years, I think almost 3. Wait, hold on. 14, 15, 16. Yeah, almost 3 years. And my roommate, Nikki, she was this amazing chick. We just got so close. We did a lot of bad things too, but we got really close, and she ended up being like my closest friend at that time.
Let me touch on that, because you're in a safe place.
Yeah.
And you're in a place where you call in a stranger mom, because if that person is acting like that, but you're still into your delinquent cycles.
Yes.
You're still doing things. You're still opening the door for all kinds of stuff to come out.
Oh, I mean, things got worse, actually. This is the thing. What's interesting is that when I went in there, I was caught up in a lot of, I was selling drugs the whole time I lived there. Like, I didn't stop that. I was doing, going on robberies, and like, none of that stopped. I had a place to call home. And so I was still broken. I wasn't dealing with the brokenness. I wasn't dealing with what was going on at the core.
I was going to ask you why, if such a cushion was available to you, you didn't take full advantage of it.
I had to, my skin probably got even thicker, being in care, because, you live with so many different girls. So I was still like getting into a lot of scraps. I was still, when I first got to the home, I tested all of them. Like, I came in with that, and I was still in the streets. Like, even though I was in a home at this place was close to Jane and Finch, I was in Region and Bleecker every day. I left to go down there every day. It was still my block. It was still where my friends were, where my community was. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why, okay, I had a home, but I didn't stop all that. I don't know if I wanted to at the time. I think I was so caught up that, to me, that was my life. That was my family.
It be because it was like an institution, even though it was a home, there was something about it different?
Absolutely. Yeah. That too. Exactly. So my home, that was supposed to be my safe space, my parents, who were supposed to love me and protect me and keep me safe, and they disappointed me. And so to me, it was like, that's my only home. That was the only home I really considered home. It was kind of institutionalized. Yeah, it was. There was. Yeah, you said it right. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So then you got kicked out of this institution by breaking institutional rules, right?
I
You
I
got
got
pregnant.
pregnant. So they didn't, and it was very hard for them to tell me the news. Like, they sat me down. They said that they wanted to have a meeting with me, and I was like, okay, did I do anything? Um, yeah, and
They're older,
yeah,
somewhat experienced in foster care.
they had,
So
oh
they knew
yeah,
what was going to happen to you, what you were facing,
yeah,
the hardships that hit you, and they hit you right away,
yeah.
those hardships. Right?
And they would tell me, they were not supportive of the relationship that I was in, because I was getting beat up all the time by him. So I'd come home with bruises, and a couple times they'd have to come get me in the middle of the night on the street somewhere. I also went to jail a few times. I actually went to jail while I was pregnant in my first trimester. So, and that happened when I was there.
While you were in jail, pregnant, did you
Mhm.
think you would get out in time to have your baby, or did you think maybe the system?
I didn't, because it was drugs and guns, right? So at the time, I was like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I did get a lot of chances because I was a Crown Ward. I did become a Crown Ward. And so they let me off a lot. Like, I was in and out of 311 a lot. But each time I showed up in court and I was a Crown Ward, they feel sorry for you, and you have your social workers and your foster parents and I went through all that even with my foster kids. And so they did let me go a lot. Now, for this one, I was scared because, yeah, I was pregnant. I was like 2 months, almost 3 months pregnant, and
in a juvie center at the boot.
yeah. So I was like, I was nervous, and because I wasn't talking, street code, right? Well, whose stuff is this? I don't know. I don't know whose stuff this is, right? So.
Well, the girls at your age here, for us gangbangers here,
Mhm.
went through the same stuff. We'd pass them our pistols, our shit, or whatever we had, and oftentimes they would take the heat. And
Exactly.
They would get slammed down. And this is what I always say, because I've been to the female penitentiary enough times just to see the difference. And one of my cousins there said, you notice in the visiting room, you don't see a lot of you guys here visiting us girls. When you go to a male prison, the visiting rooms are packed.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we tend to diss our girls
Yes.
really quick. Our
Yes.
gang-banging partners really quick. And vice versa, girls don't do it to us. And that was your experience different than my experience, because my experience was hold my pistol. Cops are coming. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I did
then
all of
after
that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you want to say to girls out there that were going through this same thing? They're getting pulled out. So you come
Oh
out of
my
foster
God.
care. There's other girls coming out of foster care.
Yeah.
Right now. You have a story.
Yeah, what I would say, definitely, I promise you it's a phase. I promise you it's a phase. Now, the flip side to that is, don't get stuck in that phase. I remember days, and I talk about this in the book as well. I can't even believe I did this. Like, when I think of it now, I cannot believe I put not only myself, but my baby at risk. I would go into these prisons, West Detention, into these prisons where they would have touch visits. And I'd bring my baby, and it's crazy saying this out loud, I would put drugs in his diapers. And while daddy was holding him, he would take the drugs and he would shove it up his butt. And I can't even believe how many times I did that. I can't believe I did that. It just goes to show how lost I was, a lack of love, self-love, lack of love and self-love, that I would actually do that. And of course, yes, you will regret it. Absolutely. Thankfully, I did not get caught for that stuff. There are a lot of things that I did. I was like 7 months pregnant. Cops pulled us over. This is also in the book. And I had a baby doll dress on, and there was a 22 in the car. Little, you know how small those are. They're tiny. And I was sitting in the back behind him. He was driving, and I was just right directly behind him. And he's like, damn, anyways, they threw some of the drugs out the window while we were driving. And then the gun, well, it's small. Who's going to take it? So I voluntarily said, give it to me. And he kind of passed it to me. And I put it I was wearing like little like booty shorts underneath. And so I put it between my legs. You know, the shorts were tight, so they held it there between my legs, right beneath my private spot, you know? And we all got out of the car. They made everybody get out of the car. And I don't know, I'm telling you, like Angel, God, my Vavo, my grandma, I don't know who was watching me, but over me. They had everyone spread out their arms and their legs, and the female cop came to me. There was two cops, and the female cop came to me. And she said, spread your legs open, put your hands up. I was shaking. I could see myself shaking because I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. You know, 3 dudes in the car, 1 girl, I'm done. And she patted my legs, right? Both my legs, and her hand came up here because it was a dress. Her hand came up here like right, if she had went an inch any closer, she would have felt something there. And because it was a dress, so you could see pretty much everything I had on, but it was kind of long, you know? And she went up, and then she kind of went like this. I can't remember what she did, and this. And she did not feel it. So I got to go back in the car with the gun, and we drove off.
So 2 things to ask you. Were you afraid the gun might go off?
No.
Okay, the second
No, I
thing
didn't
is-
even think of it. Damn! I didn't even think of that.
Us guys think of that all the time.
No, I have a story about that, but yeah. No, I didn't. I just thought,
The second thing, had she found that, would your man instantly, because that's how the law works,
No.
he would have just kept quiet?
no.
You'd have
And
rolled over it.
I wanting to be, or being that wannabe ride or die chick, you know, I would have been like, yeah, so what? Okay, cool. Because that's how I was. That's what I
There was
did.
always guns in my house for a reason.
Yeah.
But I knew, and my women know, that if any cop come to my house, I would instantly take the heat rather than let suffer at all.
Yeah.
Because I can take the heat.
Yeah.
And they have other things to do to help me
Yeah.
on the outside than them suffering.
I'm glad you asked that, Ricky, because I think for, you know, anyone who is watching, you know, for all the young girls that are watching, or girls, women in general that are watching, I think it's a great question to ask yourself, you know, if something happened, you know, and you got caught, would your man, would the man that you're riding with, rolling with, would he take the heat for that? Would he say, you know what, show up and say, actually, that gun was mine, or those drugs are mine? That's a really good question, because I believe 80 to 90, maybe even 95% of the girls watching this who are experiencing that, the answer is no.
Then why do it? And that's the whole thing. Because here's
yeah.
the second question. If the answer is no,
Yeah.
and you have a child together,
Yeah.
right? Is he going to bring your child up to see you, knowing that it was
Yeah.
his thing that puts you in that position? I can answer that question because only 10% of the male prison population exists in the federal system. Only 10% get visits, and I'd say only 2 or 3% of the women population get visits. So no, 97% are going to say, hey man, I got another chick, I can't deal with this, and she wants me to go to church with her on Sunday to make amends for what happened to my other chick there, so I'm not going to go up and see you, you know, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's when you say why do it, again, as much as I wouldn't have told you that at the time, I wouldn't say I'm lost, I'm confused, I would never say that. To me, I had my stuff together. I'm like, oh, I'm good, you know, but I was lost, a mess, just, my gosh, like just wanting to have that role in his life, even though there were so many other women.
I was packing a 9mm in grade 9, and Sharon, who in my book I married,
yes.
So she hugged me for the first time, and she felt the gun, and she's like, oh, why are you carrying a gun? I'm a gangbanger, is what I do. So she liked that. And so that was to her demise to like that. She never got in trouble with me because we split up before that happened. But that would have been her demise to like a guy that's packing a gun and carrying a gun.
Oh, I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved it at the time. I was addicted to bad boys because my dad was a bad boy. My dad had that badness in him.
Influences from the media or television or movies for you at that time also?
Zero. I'm in my 40s. There was no social media. There was none.
So
like
you might have
none.
this inherent desire to get yourself in trouble then. to be bad.
Yeah,
Just to be
I think
bad.
it was, I became a product of my environment. I knew what gangsters were when I was 5, 6 years old. I knew what a person looked like when he was fiending. I'd be walking down the street with my family and I'd see a drug addict
You might have
fiending
heard
on the
this from
street.
before, but from I came banging perspective. Damn
Mhm.
girl, where we at? I wish I had 10 of you.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, but thank God, I'm telling you that thank God I grew up.
Well, that's it.
I grew up. And now it's like I look back and I realize how much, I was a mess. I was such a mess. Some of the things I did, I'm like, what? How did I even, like, what was happening in my soul?
So that's life experiences, and now you're transitioning that, and you're transformative motivational speaking.
Yeah.
So how is that coming? Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, I say permanent transformation because you can transform, for instance, your body by going on a diet. You can transform in 3 months. You get off that diet and you're right back to, if not worse, you gain back even more weight. So I say permanent transformation because I'm in the business of inspiring and helping women and girls permanently transform their lives. So how do I cut out this habit and cut it out permanently versus, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to date this toxic guy now, but I'll hop on to the next toxic guy in 3, 4 months. So I started getting into transformational speaking or actually, I had the desire to do transformational work while I myself was transforming my life. So for me, the journey started with, I guess the desire started when my boyfriend at the time was murdered in front of me and died in my arms, as you read in the book. I think it was after that I realized, like, if I didn't get out, that I was going to die.
You attribute Christianity to
Yes.
the push at that time.
Yes.
Pushing you in that direction.
And after he died,
and you maintain that.
I did.
Do you still think that is the glue that keeps you together now?
The glue that keeps me together is God. That is the foundation of everything I do. Whatever you feel comfortable calling it, I always say I found God when I lost my religion. So what flipped the switch for me in all aspects of my life, my spirituality, my business, the work that I do, me as a servant, who I am in my community, was the first switch was going to church because that's where I found peace. That's where I found the platform. I didn't understand it too much. I was always confused as to the different religions and why do I have to, there was a lot of confusion there. I didn't really understand who I was in God, what my calling was, why was I here, what was the purpose of my life, why did I have to suffer so much, what was the point of that, what can I really do with my life now? But I would say the real switch that really flipping that switch was when I survived emergency brain surgery. That completely transformed my life.
That your immortality.
Yeah.
Your mortality. You realize that you had limitations to your life,
yes. Right? That was really, really transformational for me on another level. That was when I really started to study, the Bible, and God's word, and really understand who I was, because I understood whose I was. He is my real father, my dad, it was just the transformation. Father. Yeah, the tool, the vehicle that God used to bring me into this world.
A little sperm cell.
Yeah, that's it, right? But that was when true forgiveness happened in my life, really letting my dad go and making amends with that. Everything happened. I realized how fast I could have died, and I just wanted to live. I tend to say, brain surgery scared me back to life. When people say scared me to death, it scared me to life. So that was when the real transformation, that was when the permanent transformation started.
The Bible says that a person could lead other people towards bad. Then it also says in the same verse that it can lead many, many more towards good. Is that how
Yes,
you feel now?
absolutely. Yeah, because you and I did both. You're doing the same now. So I've always been a leader. I was never easy to like, you know,
I've never had a boss. Even since I was a little kid, I had my crew from
yeah.
grade 1 up.
Yeah,
So I had
yeah.
a crew from
I remember that in the
Correia.
book.
Yeah. So
Yeah, those stories made me laugh because I could relate to a lot of them. But yeah, I've never been led astray, like really by like, oh, do this, do that. Hence why a lot of people are shocked because I cooked crack, I sold crack, I, you know, was in the drug game for so long, but I've never ever touched a drug in my life except for weed, and I didn't like it. I didn't like weed. I didn't like it because I didn't like feeling paranoid
Bill
and
Clinton, you spoke, but you didn't inhale, right? So
yeah, like I didn't like it.
no, I get it because I'm in that lifestyle too.
Yeah.
And everybody's around you doing all kinds of stuff. And
Oh
you
my
don't
God,
do it.
everyone around me did it. My two best friends became addicts, right? So, but I always understood and knew that if I touch it, I'm gonna look like those people I saw, you know, from 5, 6 years old. You'd be running down the stairs in the building and fiends are there shooting up in the staircases and sleeping, passed out, condoms, needles. So I understood that if I did that, to me, if I do that, I'm gonna look like that or I'm gonna die. And I had a lot of pain to numb, trust me. Like it was not easy, right? But I never even I never even thought or I was never even interested in numbing myself with drugs ever.
Okay, so when the last judge, or I'm assuming that sentenced me to this unprecedented sentence that I'm doing, he said you're going to bring 500 keys of blow into this city a month. And you were the cause of all this stuff. Do you ever think when you were in the game and that you were doing this, now that you look back and you're older,
Absolutely.
that there's maybe addicts out there that you had created through your persistence and leadership?
Yeah, I have thought about that a lot, even when I was, the beginning of my journey, my healing journey. I had to forgive myself for that, like I forgive you, Liz, because, I don't know. I don't know who overdosed or who.
Exactly. You don't know the destruction behind you.
No.
You're just going forward, right?
No, I didn't even, at the time, I became as cold as the streets or as the people who wronged me. I didn't even think of that at the time. I didn't
In order
care.
to survive the streets, you have to be like that.
Yeah.
Because there's no one on the streets in any position of leadership or in major game players that have a lot of empathy because they don't have self-love. No matter
Yeah.
what you're doing, right?
And I was around a lot of dudes. Like I was the only girl on Bleecker. I was really the only girl out there, a few years in. And I was 14, man. I was 13 when I started hanging on the block with the guys. And then
My
I was.
cousins were there then who know you. My cousins were out there then.
Oh,
Same
okay,
age as
okay.
you,
Oh,
so,
wow,
yeah.
interesting. Yeah. So, there was really no females. There was like, so I had my guys, my dudes, my brothers, who I still call them my brothers. They really like, there were, my boy who was the first one to put, an 8 ball in my hand was also the first one to put a gun in my hand. You need this to be out here, right? So it's, I my skin, I think I was already getting a little cold. Like I was already feeling that way with my dad. I was, and then being on the streets, it just got worse over the years. And then dealing with like the physical abuse and, yeah.
Okay, there's girls and I come from this large, functioning, illiterate family at the time. A lot of alcohol abuse, blue collar workers, a lot of some sexual abuse and all this kind of stuff. What do you say to people? How do you extract yourself from that? What do you do from your experiences? You got a bad father, a bad uncle, or some social worker, or somebody in this power position. What do you do if you're a girl? From a guy's point of view, it's different. From a big guy's point of view, it's different. So we gravitate towards violence quicker in order to get ourselves out of that situation. But what does a girl do?
Listen, when I think back to my life and I think back to when I was 10 years old, when my mom left my dad's born blind, and my mom left him with 4 children. She never came back. And a few months after she left, she had my father arrested she charged my father for sexually abusing my sister and I. I was about 11 years old. And my father started training us on how to talk to the social workers, how to lie. He instilled fear in us and saying that if you tell the truth, you're going to go to those homes and they're going to beat you and they're like jail. And
then that's the story you hear.
Yeah.
But you've been to the homes and it's not like that.
Yeah.
You have a different story. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because my sister and I denied it. We denied everything. And my father won that case. And so my father won custody of us. He, sent for this woman in Portugal to come down as a nanny. She ended up becoming his wife and, painted a great picture. But if I could go back, if I was that age right now, 10 years old, I have no regrets. However, if it's a 10-year-old watching this, any age really, I would have told the truth, because it was, by the time I did, I was 14. It was 14 extra years that my father got to mentally, emotionally, sexually abuse me. So how different would it have been if I was saved?
Threat, how hard it is to tell the truth.
Yeah, because I was scared of what was going to happen to him. I was scared of these homes he was talking about. I would say this, one, talk to someone. I didn't speak to anyone, not my teachers, not any social. CAS was involved in our life at in JK, SK. I remember having conversations with social workers. We all had learning disabilities, right? So, for me, I was angry all the time. I was fighting all the time. So I always had workers in my life. And talk to someone. Denying it and denying yourself, that of those feelings that you're feeling is so crippling and so toxic. Part of my anger, huge part of my anger, is that I had no one. I trusted no one. I told no one. My sister and I would be in the room. My sister would be in the room while my dad is doing things to me, sitting there crying, not being able to say anything, just quiet.
So I hear your message saying, speak out.
Yes.
And be free.
Because it's a part of the freedom. It's a step towards freedom. Because when you bottle that inside and you can't even, you can't talk to him, even though my sister and I were going through it, we never even spoke to each other about it. That's how he got to us, our psyche, it was that crippling.
There's two scales here. And I'm thinking have you met girls that reacted differently and violently hurt the other person? So now that placates them. They feel that they've done something.
The person who was abusing them?
Exactly. Have you run into those girls in your travels?
Well, the day...
Trying to weigh the two odds. Should I keep quiet and suffer, or should I just take this motherfucker
Well, the
out?
day that my father, you probably read this in the book, the day that that I went to the doctor, my father was about to do something to me. And by that time, I was 14. I was already around guns and drugs and gang, street guys. And I knew, okay, this is wrong. And I told him, if he does it, that I'll blow his brains out. And I meant it. I really meant it. I wanted to kill my father. And I probably wanted to kill him. I started wanting that, envisioning how I was going to do it at 12. I just wanted him gone, out of my life. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted him to stop. To me, he was a monster, And then the crazy thing is, on the flip side of that, I loved him.
Because he's your biological father.
Yeah.
You didn't know anything else.
Yeah. So when I would have those thoughts, I would sometimes feel bad about having those thoughts. I would cry. Crazy. Just my emotions were all over the place. But on that day, oh yeah, I was done. I was done. So I understand the woman who has done that. And I've met women who did that. Yeah, I've met women who've done time for hurting their abuser.
Well, I've been around women who have similar stories, and the first thing I say, you want us to take care of that? And they're like,
oh yeah.
And we're serious.
Oh yeah. I was still hanging out on Bleecker and Regent for years, up until my mid-20s, even when I got put into care. And when my boys found out what my father was doing to my sister and I, that's a whole other topic. Like, I thought for sure my dad was going to end up dead because my dad lived there until my mid 20s. He was still there every day, in and out. My dad was blind, so he always had to have someone walking with him, in and out, in and out. I would see him in and out, in and out, and my boys would literally be like, just say the word. Just say the word, Liz. And I was always like, no, karma. You know, he'll pay one day. But oh yeah, that is real. That is real. When you, man, yeah. I know, a lot to talk about. We could sit here forever.
Yeah, because we got similar experiences.
Yeah,
that
that's
go
why,
way
and I
back
love it. I love that.
with
Yeah.
this almost the same people. Different era for you, a couple years different than me. My era, the crack era, I missed that because I went to jail for that. So I understand it. But in my day when I was younger, it was the speed freak era.
Yes,
Almost identical, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was on speed, Regent Park here. Speed
Yeah.
everyone was speed, and there was like madness going on.
Yeah, speed
So
and glue, the speed, the glue, like that was a big thing even when I was
friends
younger.
I argue with sometimes because they talk about when you're younger. I said, man, you used to sit on the streetcar sniffing glue.
That was like everybody did that. Like everyone was doing it.
I did that. I said, yeah, you did. I never.
No,
I
but
never sniffed glue.
yeah, never. Did you ever try it?
Never, not once.
Yeah. No, meaning like everyone on the streets. Like now I can't tell you last time I saw. I have a program called Street Projects, and so I'm still down there a lot. But I can't tell you the last time I saw someone sniffing the glue. Yeah.
It used to be big here.
It was huge.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually a whole chapter in my book where I talk about that. Like, yeah, that was a big thing.
So is there anything you want to say? Because we're wrapping down now. Is there something you want to say to just get that last punch out? There's been a schism between Regent Park and here, and you've been in both neighborhoods for a long time. That schism didn't exist when I was younger. Audrey Sampson of Regent Park, the first person to ever move into Regent Park, still there after 60-something years. She was in. So that's my relative, and my mother is the longest living person here. So you have people that are the longest living people in these two places. So there should be no beef between us for that reason.
Honestly, it's.
And it wasn't my generation, the beef. It was your generation that started that beef. Yeah,
it was because that was all. That was turf war or whatever they call it now, but that was huge for us. Yeah, that was big. That was big for the girls, and that was big for the guys. For Cataraqui, whether it was Scarborough, Jane and Finch, Rexdale, it didn't matter. Falstaff. Chalk Farm. It was all turf war was big. A lot of the guys that died back then from that.
There was just us, and there was just Regent Park. There was no Jane and Finch.
Yeah.
There was no Mississauga. There was no Scarborough.
Wow.
There was no Brampton, no Hamilton. It was just us, Regent Park and us.
Wow.
You're looking at multiracial gangbang stuff. So this was the downtown core. That's the difference. I tell everybody, it was just us, and then all these other groups and stuff started to happen.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was raised in that. Yeah, for sure. You know what? What I would say is this. I'm going to say it again. Don't get stuck in a phase. Do not get stuck in a phase. The Bible says this too shall pass. It's a phase.
Everything passes.
Everything passes. And if you get stuck, what I mean by stuck, you're out there gun banging, you're shooting up the place, the block, drive-bys, selling dope, whatever it is that you do, doing drugs, popping mollies and whatever, drinking lean, whatever it is, because I work with a lot of young people, right? It's a phase. And if you get stuck in it, you can overdose. I've seen a lot of that. End up doing time. We've seen a lot of that.
There's another pro. So we'll just get that, take it in, and what do they want? And that's success. So I was with a group of guys that literally took over an island. We're major world players in that sense. But we didn't win, man. I got 50 years out of it. Other guys doing life, no paroles.
Right.
We didn't win. We're at the top of the game. So we rock and roll a long time. Like you know people that rock and roll. Yeah. And I remember in your book, one of the points, Maggie, you were pregnant and you didn't have any money. And I said to myself, what do you mean she doesn't have money? She could get money easy just by doing this, doing that, and doing this, keeping in the game. You see what I mean? So what I'm trying to get at is, does the game really pay? in the long run.
No.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Oh my
So
God, no.
Yeah,
Nothing. Listen, we both made money. I bought my first car. I was in my late teens, 17,000 cash. Okay. I have nothing, absolutely nothing to show for almost the 15 years that I sold dope and did other things for money.
That's
right?
the point, yeah.
15 years. I have nothing to show, and I had nothing I had material things.
Easy come, easy go. You'll get
Yeah.
anything, right? So yeah.
I had the nicest clothes, the nicest shoes. I had jewelry. But what was that? I don't have any of it. And even, I mean, they were material things. I had nothing to show for it. And even if you're doing it to pay your way through school, you might not make it through school.
Right, yeah.
Once you start making, another thing is this: nobody needs to be making illegal blood money, 3, 4, 500, 3, 4, 5,000 a day. No one needs to be making that, especially illegal blood money. Why? For what? For what?
If you make $5,000 a day selling, we'll say, crack, then you must have 100 people
working for you,
addicted to you,
right?
and
or
suffering under you,
absolutely,
like your dogs or your slaves.
Yeah.
And if that's what you like, to have a whole bunch of dogs and slaves under you, so you could pretend to be rich, then good luck to you, because the penitentiary or death is where you're going.
Right. And not just that, even if you're saying, okay, well, I ended up dating a guy who did 15 years. You read in the book. You have, even if you've got 10 soldiers working under you, well, guess what? One of them 10 soldiers is going to get caught and call you out. Like, how many times do we see that?
What I say, you will sum that up on this. I wanted to be a kingpin. Guy's king of this neighborhood, not a big stretch in my imagination, I would say.
Yeah.
So the bigger you get, the bigger the microscope's on you.
Absolutely.
All your buddies want to take you down for a reason. And if you get as big gets, Pablo Escobar, everybody else, what happened? Murdered on his birthday.
Yeah.
What happened to all the top dogs that are
right?
They're all dead or in jail. Why don't we see that?
Yes.
Why don't we see that? So when I was a kid, I used to like the bank robber guys, the shoot 'em up guys, Bonnie and Clyde, those guys. But I never realized at the end of the movie, each and every one of them is dead. That part didn't resonate in me.
And if you survive, how long are you going to do that for? How long can you really do that for before, like you said, death or prison? Like, there really is no other way out of this. There is no other way.
You flip your switch, you go down another road.
Exactly. And then, I was getting there, when you do decide to flip the switch, it's a much harder start. It's worthy, you and I both know, but it's harder because you spent so many years making that fast money on the streets, learning a certain way. So you have to now unlearn all of that and relearn the right way, a good, healthy way of living.
But, and I say this, at the end of the day, if you fail in whatever you're doing in a pro-social way, you can dust yourself off and
get up again.
But
you're not going. You can't.
Dead, right?
Yes, you can start. You can start and restart anything the clean way. Anything. You try this, it doesn't work out, cool. You move on to the next thing. That doesn't work out, cool. You move.
And we'll use your Christian ethics. When one door closes, another door opens.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
When that door closes, if you're doing life no parole, it's never going to open.
I know. And now we see what's happening in the streets, man. A lot of these guys are out here, banging up the place, and no one's getting caught, no one's getting arrested, and they think, oh, I'm good. You're good. You're good. Now, I just shot someone, killed somebody, got away with it. Now I have to wonder who's going to call me out, who's going to rat me out, which girl's going to set me up. So now I got to be careful with girls. Like, my son's boy just got set up the other day. Good guy. Doesn't even sell dope, but he's got some money, It's like, really, you're always going to be, even if you got away, like a lot of these guys right now. Okay, and what? So now what? Are you changing your life? What are you gonna do? Because karma does come back.
And I know some of them, and I always say, show me the success in a criminal empire, and I've been around a long time. And I say I can point out A, But they're like lotto winners, man.
Yeah.
Truly like lotto winners. They rolled dice that we rolled. Their dice just come in better.
Yeah.
If you think you can do what they do, go ahead and give it a shot. I wouldn't want to be you.
And you know what, Ricky? What is it, a 1%?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Come on, 1%?
Well, the thing is, if you never pick up a criminal record and you run for a office or a politician, you can create more crime than anyone else, longer than
True.
but you can't tell a gangbanger that because he's not going in that direction.
Yeah.
So he set himself up for absolute failure, no matter how you look at it. So so we've both been there. We both did it, and you can see that the end of your rope is literally the end of the rope. Right?
And look, if you are selling dope or you are selling guns, whatever, doing something, listen, I truly believe from like deep within, ex-drug dealers, even current drug dealers, hustlers, are the best business owners.
Same thing.
The best business owners.
Skills, right?
Yeah, you want someone solid on your team, that you're building a solid legal team, get an ex-drug dealer, an ex-hustler. Because their work ethic, how they are with numbers and flipping, they're amazing.
I put that in my book. The 3 judges said it. With your business acumen, your intellect, and your organizational skills, you could have run a Fortune 500 company, but you fail to go down that route. Instead, you stick with this stuff here. Bang. See you later.
And wouldn't you say the longer you spend in that world is the harder it is to extract and rebuild yourself?
Yeah, because you got to reinvent yourself. It's changing the stripes on a zebra. It can be done, but it's really hard to do, right? So the longer you stay down, the harder it is to get up, but not impossible. I can give you lots of examples. The guys got 50 years in the game, and then now they're doing well. They're doing good. They're helping. They're giving back. So there's always hope is the thing. There's always hope no matter where you're at and how down you could be from your perspective and my perspective to come out of it and not do this silly, stupid stuff that we had done when we were younger. Right?
Yeah. See, I know a couple who are doing the work we're doing. A couple, oh God, not nearly as much as there should be. There's not enough of us out here. But for me, for my own experience, 95% of the guys that I grew up with are either dead or doing life. And the ones who got like 25, 35, 50 years, some of them are just now coming out. Like a couple of them came out in the one got taken out, came out, went right back to the same lifestyle. He was 40, 44, and he got someone, a 16-year-old kid took him out.
So the difference with my crew, being older in a different generation, most of them have transitioned to the pro-social stuff and are now grandparents working or doing something. And they're out of the game. Just a few, 10%, are still, like you said, they're still moving around, still doing stuff.
Yeah.
Different era, different time.
It is. Yeah. So it's just not worth it, man. I'm so glad I have completely, permanently transformed my life, and I'm grateful that God has given me that story. Like, my story isn't even about me anymore. It really isn't. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm healed. I'm good. It's really about what it's doing for for other women and men and young boys and girls. Like, I can say, look, I did that. I did that. You don't want to go there. This is why, ABC. So I'm grateful.
That has a greater effect. I think it has a greater effect than an academic saying it without those life experiences.
Absolutely.
What I say is, over time, you become the academic too with that experience.
Yes. Right? Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Like I got into the school board and school boards. I'm doing things that I only dreamed of. I didn't even think were possible. And it wasn't because of a degree.
That's right.
I'm my story qualified me.
You have your degree.
Yeah. Exactly.
So anyways, Elizabeth, nice talking to you.
You as well.
Flip Your Switch crew loves you here.
Thank you.
Brighten up. You're on first female guest. So
oh my God. I'm a real OG now.
That's right. Yeah, and I wish you well on your travels, because I know you're giving back and helping kids, and that's what it's about. I hope you like this show of Flip Your Switch and our time with Elizabeth Correia. She's an interesting woman, as you saw, And she will be going out around the city and across this country giving her message, which is going to help kids and help players navigate their life and go towards a more pro-social existence, which we all know is better for you. Thanks for watching the show. Louis Marsh is on next. He'll be on our show by the end of the month. Stay tuned. Guns and gangs, people. It's going to be interesting.